Hello everyone, today I will show you how to diagnose your electric water pump. We're working on a 2016 BMW, but the things that I'll show you, you can apply to many other cars that use electric water pumps. The tools I will be using in today's video: a little pick tool, test light, multimeter, and a flathead screwdriver. On a BMW, without any specific tools, you can check your water pump with turning on the ignition, turning on the blower for the lowest setting, temperature all the way up, and I like to also turn on my headlights in order for the car not to go to sleep. Once you have that, press in the accelerator all the way in for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, the car should initiate the bleeding procedure for your cooling system. After bleeding procedure is initiated, what you can do is come outside and listen for the water pump. Do not confuse the sound from the blower with your water pump. And what you can also do, if the engine is cool, you can open this up slowly and listen for any noises or circulating coolant inside. If nothing is going on, as you can see right here, you can be sure that your water pump is not turning on. What we need now is to gain access to the water pump connector. It may vary on your car, but on the BMW specifically, it is located on the passenger side. You can see it right in the middle there. And what you need to do is unplug it and gain access to the pins inside. I found it to be the easiest way to unplug it on the BMW from the top, just putting in your arm, pressing that little tab, and pulling out the connector. To understand exactly what we're gonna be doing next, I need to explain how the electric water pump works. As you can see, on the left, you have two bigger pins, and on the right, two smaller pins. One of the bigger pins will have constant 12-volt supply, and the other of the bigger pins will have a constant ground. On the right, you have coolant signal and LIN bus signal from the DME or ECU. What we're looking for now with a test light is going to be to make sure that we have constant 12-volt supply on the bigger pin and that we have ground on the bigger pin. For the first test, we will be using a test light. You can find one on Amazon or eBay for a couple dollars. And the way this works is you can put this clamp on the ground to find power, or in our case, 12-volt supply, or you can put it on the positive 12-volt supply to find ground. BMW makes it very simple to find the battery positive. On the passenger side, you have this cover. You can pop it open. You can put your test light clamp on it. And now we're ready to look for the ground. If you don't have that, you might also try to find your access point for the alternator. It should also have a wire that runs to the battery, or any kind of positive 12-volt supply will do in making sure that you can find the ground. With the test light connected to battery positive, we can look for the ground on the bigger pin. Here it is. We know we have ground. And now with the test light connected to the ground, we can be looking for the 12-volt supply, which is going to be another big pin. And we do have 12-volt supply. If you do not have a 12-volt supply, one of your problems can be a fuse. To access the fuse on the BMW for the water pump, what you have to do is pop this cover up. And access this fuse box. What you want to do is press these little tabs and pop it open. You also have two tabs in the back. Press them and you can release the entire cover. It's a little weird that BMW does not give you a diagram inside telling you which fuse is what. Neither does it tell you what number each fuse is, unless I'm blind and I don't see it. But on the cooling system diagram, the wiring diagram, you can see that the water pump gets its power from fuse number 7. If you can't find which fuse is what you can do is, using your test light, you can take it, and the fuse has exposed metal pieces on both sides. What you're looking for is for your test light to turn on while touching one side and the other. If you're gonna end up with a fuse that only has power on one side but doesn't have power on the other side, you know that this fuse is not good, that it's blown. This is the access to the water pump 12 volt supply if you do not have the 12 volt supply on the connector. In case you don't have the ground on your electric water pump connector, what you have to do is find where that ground goes. So on this motor, it grounds to front of the engine. So I will remove the airbox and I will show you exactly where the ground goes. What you're looking for is basically corrosion, broken wires, anything that keeps this wire from the water pump touching the bare metal of the motor. This will keep your water pump from turning on, and sometimes the fix is as simple as cleaning out the ground, retightening everything, and the water pump is going to turn back on. To take out the airbox, you have to undo this connector right here. What I like to do is use this little pick tool and get underneath the tang and pull it out. Never pull by the wires, always pull by the connector. You don't wanna damage these wires. You can either push it right here from the top, or if you have a pick tool like this, you can get underneath, lift up the tab, and pull it out. Now you have access to the clamp. Using a flathead screwdriver, undo the clamp. The way the airbox comes out, you have these grommets. You pull on them. On this N26 motor, you have your water pump ground coming out of this wiring loom. The brown wire comes out, loops around a little bit, and then bolts directly to the motor. From what I've read, there are issues with the bolt itself, and also I would check the wire if it's not cracked or broken anywhere, especially from being so close to the motor. It might be your issue from the heat. But if you do not have the ground on your electric water pump connector, this is where I would start. After verifying I have 12 volt supply and I have ground to my electric water pump connector, what I will do now is connect the test light to ground, and I will be looking for a pin, one of the smaller pins, but what I'm looking for is the test light to turn on when I'm gonna be doing the cooling system bleeding procedure that I did in the beginning of the video. The idea behind it is underneath this cover there is a DME, or the ECU, and the way this works is the ECU sends a signal via one of these pins, the smaller pins, to the water pump for it to turn on and how fast to spin. So it uses a pulse width modulation to tell the water pump, hey, spin faster because I need more cooling, or spin slower because the car is in eco mode and we want the temperature of the engine to be a little bit higher for better economy. So this pin will tell the water pump to turn on, and if I put my test light on it and the test light does not turn on, that means there might be a problem with either wiring between the computer and the water pump or with the computer itself. If this test light turns on but the water pump doesn't run, as I did test it in the previous test, and doesn't run, that means the water pump is for sure broken and I can go ahead and replace it. As you can see, the test light turned on, which means that the computer is sending the signal for the water pump to turn on, but in the previous test, the water pump just didn't turn on. So I am pretty confident that the water pump is indeed the problem. The tests that I just did are the easiest tests that you can possibly do. With just a test light, you can see if you have 12 volt supply, if you have ground, and on the BMW, it's a nice thing to be able to turn on that electric water pump with cooling system bleeding procedure, because it allows you to actually see if there's any signals coming from the ECU to the water pump. If you do not have a BMW or have a different car and you don't have ability to turn on that electric water pump, what I would do is test the 12 volt supply, test the ground, and then go after the signal wire between your ECU and the water pump connector. To access the DME on this BMW, what you have to do is lift up the cover. And here is your DME. If you want to access the two pins, the two smaller pins on your electric water pump connector, what you have to do is get to this connector that is far left towards the passenger side. But in order to get to this connector, you have to unplug the two to the right. Before unplugging any connectors, please disconnect your battery negative, and this way you will be able to test this connector and not damage anything. The way you take these connectors out, you have this little tab right here. You have to press it. Try to do it with one hand. Then you release the connector. Same thing with this one. Be really careful not to drop anything. Don't use a screwdriver. Use your finger. Don't damage these pins. So be careful. Press it. Release it. Up. And then this will be the connector that you're looking for. When you look at the connectors, you have pins 1 and 2 here, and then they go from, basically when you look at it that way, from right to left. One way to check continuity between your pins on the wiring is using a multimeter like this. This is a cheap multimeter from Amazon. This costs like $10. And the way this works is you set it up to this little speaker, and then you touch one with the other, and it should beep. If it doesn't beep, you have a problem with the wire. It must be broken somewhere. The pin, something wrong with the pin, with the wire, whatever it is, there is no continuity between pin on one connector and the pin on the other connector. So once again, you want to hear the beep. If you don't hear the beep, you have a problem with the wire. For demonstration purposes, we will find continuity between coolant pump pin on the DME, which is pin number 35. It's a white wire that goes to electric water pump connector. It enters at pin number 2, which is going to be the small white wire, small pin. And what you want to do is use one of the test leads from your multimeter, put it into that pin, and now with another test lead, find pin number 35, which should be somewhere right here. And I can hear the beep. That means there is continuity between pin number 35 on the DME connector and pin number 2 on the electric water pump connector. If you have problems other than 12-volt supply and the ground, and you can't activate that water pump, and if you need to have that test done, you need to find the pinout for your ECU connector, pinout for your water pump connector, and you need to do that test to make sure that you have continuity. If you have continuity between these pins and the pins on the water pump, what I would do is make sure that the pins are not damaged themselves, because sometimes you can plug in the connector and the pin might be pulling out of the connector, or you might have a problem with your ECU. So now I have verified that the water pump indeed needs to be replaced. I will order a new water pump, and I will also get a new thermostat and a thing called a Mickey Mouse flange. So the Mickey Mouse flange is this little plastic flange right here. What can happen is the BMW plastic, usually just not the best quality of the plastics that they make. From the temperature of the engine, the plastic gets weaker and weaker, and what can happen is it can snap off and you can lose all your coolant being stranded on the side of the road. They make an aluminum upgrade for it, so I will order that as well. And in the next video, we're gonna be replacing all of these parts. I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you on the next video. Take care.